Hi there, everyone on the Great Gathering. So I'm talking to all of you wherever you are across the world, and at this particular moment in time I'm talking to the Therigatha community. Yes. So I'm about to talk about... now I realise I don't even know how to say the name of the nun. Never mind, I'm just going to say something, and she's been dead a long time, so she probably won't be offended. I'm talking about the verses of Patacara. That'll do, Patacara. Okay, so here goes for the verses. When they plough their fields and sow seeds in the earth, when they care for their wives and children, young Brahmins find riches. But I've done everything right and followed the rule of my teacher. I'm not lazy or proud. Why haven't I found peace? Bathing my feet, I watched the bathwater spill down the slope. I concentrated the mind the way you train a good horse. Then I took a lamp and went into my cell, checked the bed and sat down on it. I took a needle and pushed the wick down. When the lamp went out, my mind was freed. So this is Patachara's verse. And I'm just sort of going to go through it bit by bit, and then just like tell you, I suppose, about like my process about like how I'm relating to her verses. So she's got this first verse, which is quite interesting, where she says, when they plough their fields and sow seeds in the earth, when they care for their wives and children, young Brahmins find riches. So it's like she's talking about I suppose how you gain riches in the world, or how you get worldly success. And what you do is you put effort in. You plough the seeds, you care for your wives and children, and you get riches. It's simple. You do this, you do this, you do this, you get riches. And then it sort of feels like she misses the verse when she says, so I haven't done that. Actually, I've done something else. But I think that, that's the verse that sort of got missed off in the oral tradition, which is the bit where she says, well, actually, like, I did all this stuff. But she does say, I've done everything right. I've followed the rule of my teacher. I'm not lazy or proud. Why haven't I found peace? So I think I relate to this. I don't know, I mean, some people have a gradual entry to the Dharma, don't they? And others sort of like hit it and that's that. And I was a kind of hit it and that's that. So it's like, I met the Dharma, and within 3 years I'd given up my profession. I was a physiotherapist. I ditched my boyfriend, although that was probably going to happen anyway. That was probably not down to the Dharma. I'd moved out of my house. I'd stopped climbing, which had been a complete passion of my adult life up until that point. And within 3 years, I'd moved to Therigatha. It's like, how many retreats have I done? I've now been at Therigatha 10, getting on for 11 years. How many retreats have I done over that time? How many meditations? I did everything right. I followed the rule of my teacher. I moved into community and team-based right livelihood. I got ordained partway through it. All the study, all the puja, all the communication, all the meetings. See, my community are giggling behind the camera. And then I just really relate to Patachara's question, why haven't I found peace? Now, so in her verse, this is what happened to her, not what happened to me, okay? She she perseveres with her practice, and it's like she's doing these everyday acts. And then she says, I concentrated the mind the way you tame a good horse. So there's this sort of gentleness and care and, like how you'd relate to another living being. So it's like, this sort of concentration and, tenderness. And she's just carrying on doing like her nightly, like going to bed routine. So, she's talking about like checking the bed and lighting the lamp and then putting it out. But like for us, for me it might be like, I clean my teeth after my nightly cup of barley carp and then I switch off the lamp. So it's like she's just going through this, these sort of ordinary activities and yet bringing this very focused but very kind awareness. And it's not the point at which she focuses that the enlightenment happens. It's the point. It's the point at the relaxation afterwards, where there's this everyday activity she must do every evening, where she pushes the wick down to put the light out. When the lamp went out, my mind was freed. And you can probably hear that it's like I have a really strong emotional response to that, and I have a really strong resonance with that. And with a lot of the Therigatha verses, actually, it's like it's the dedication, it's the passion for enlightenment, it's the renunciation, like this is what's worth doing. Yes, I'm going to put myself behind it. This is what I'm going to do. And so it's like I have one response which is just like, yes. And I have this inner image of myself as like this internal kind of like Buzz Lightyear, which goes, to enlightenment and beyond. So that's what like half of myself does. Okay, that's what half of myself is doing in this. But the other half of myself is just going, that happens to her. That's marvellous for Patacara, or whatever she's called. But actually, what's happened to me? And I suppose, like, I've probably never had, like, the easiest mind to live with. Might be one way of putting it. But I suppose it's like, I've practiced for probably like a third of my life now. How should I put it? It's like, I got ordained, everybody said, you'll have a great time up the mountain. I had a really difficult time up the mountain. I got home, I fell apart, I have really difficult mental states. I ongoingly have really difficult mental states. I can really struggle with sort of like depressive thoughts, I can have, really big mood swings. And then I don't know, and then I sort of think of things like Bante's said, like, just become a happy, healthy human being and then think about like breaking down the sense of self to enlightenment. And I just think, well, I'm nowhere near. And actually like, I think I'm probably going to get enlightened without ever going near being a happy, healthy human being. I think I'm just going to like bypass that bit, actually. Somehow it seems easier. Anyhow, right, where else am I going with this? Yeah. So the thing about these stories in the Therigatha, like they're all success stories. Like you don't hear about the nuns who, it's like they had a really hard time and they practiced for years and years and years, and they still never got there. And like, what happens then? What happens then? Oh dear, now where am I going? Yeah, so I'm just coming back to this thing, like, come back to this verse where she says, but I've done everything right and I've followed the rule of my teacher. I'm not lazy or proud. Why haven't I found peace? Where's there going to be a point when I start seeing the fruits of my practice? And actually, when I look at it in some perspectives, it's like I do see the fruits of my practice. They're just quite patchy, that's all. Like sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not there. But in a way, I think what I've come up against is my expectations, like my expectations of what leading the Dharma life was going to look like, which probably looked like quicker results, to be quite frank. And you know, when you read these Therigatha verses, it sort of looks like you know, like one of the nuns says, "I've been practicing 7 years," and you think, yeah, well, I've been practicing twice that, and it still doesn't happen for me. Anyway. So I suppose what I want to talk about is next is, well, why don't I just give up in disgust? Why don't I think, okay, well, clearly the nuns in the Therigatha, they could do it, but something's different for me, so I can't, it's not working for me. Actually, that thought never crosses my mind. So why is that? Why does that thought never cross my mind? Well, only very fleetingly. Sometimes it's appealing. I think I've got two sides to this. So one is what you might call the dukkha aspect, and one is what you might call a sort of faith aspect, or a sort of intuitive certainty around the truth of practicing the Dharma life. So Patacara, her story, she actually has she's had an extremely tragic life, where she has lost her husband, 2 children, and the rest of her family in circumstances that I'm not going to go into. And then she goes mad. She loses her sanity. She trails through the streets wearing no clothes. And finally, I believe after a number of years, she meets the Buddha, and she just says to the Buddha, "Help me." And the Buddha says to her, "You haven't come to someone who can help you." What does he say? "In your many lives, you have shed more tears for the dead than there is water in the 4 oceans." Now, you might think that sounds really miserable, but there's something about that sort of pointing out of the very strong suffering aspect in unenlightened existence, where it's like, I have a faith response to that, where I just go, yes, someone's talking about my experience. And so I suppose it's like I've got an internal experience from like my mental states of dukkha, of suffering. And when I look out at the world, actually I see quite a lot of suffering going on. And, you know, whether that's COVID-19 related, whether that's, refugee crises, or whether that's crashing biodiversity and species loss and all that sort of thing. It's like actually, I just see a lot of suffering. And there's something about like someone naming it and just saying, yes, that's what it looks like. As long as I'm attached to wanting things a certain way, like actually that's going to be causing suffering for me, and it'll be causing suffering for all those beings also relating in this way. So there's something about that really strong pointing to dukkha that really, really does it for me. It's like there's no more cotton wool. You're just saying, yeah, this is the situation, and I get a faith response. But I also get a faith response, like I do to these end bit of verses of Patacara. So there's something in me that really knows that my equivalent of ploughing the fields, sowing seeds, and looking after my wives and children, and trying to kind of like make it okay in the world, actually that's just never going to do it. Whereas I just feel my heart open when I read the end of another nun's verses. So Therigatha talked about some of Kisa Gotami's verses, but actually Kisa Gotami did 2 sets of verses, and this is from her second set of verses. And actually, Kisa Gotami and Patacara, they both really link with their highly tragic lives, and then they meet the Dharma and they just go, yes. So this is Kisa Gotami with her sort of like triumph verses of enlightenment. She says, I have practiced the great eightfold way, straight to the undying. I have come to the great peace. I have looked in the mirror of the Dharma. The arrow is out. I have put my burden down. What had to be done is done. Sister Kisa Gotami, with a free mind, has said this. And I mean, partly it's like, I just get this sort of experience in my chest area where it's just like, it just wants to completely sort of expand and explode and just go, yes, yes, this is the direction, like this is what's worth doing. What had to be done was done. And it's like, okay, it might sometimes be hard going practice. And, I just have to plough through my karma and my afflicting emotions and all the rest of it. But actually it's like, this is what has to be done. It's not like something else over here has to be done. It's like, no, this is what has to be done. And when I read these similes about like the great peace, or like, I have looked in the mirror of the Dharma, I have seen clearly, the arrow is out, I have put my burden down. And actually sometimes I do have moments where it's like, I have taken the arrow out. And actually, my mind does feel so much freer, and at those points I am so much better able to respond to other people in the world than when I've got my arrow firmly stuck in and I'm sort of hobbling along with my burden of like, rubbish stuff going on for me. Actually, at that point, I'm really locked in on myself and I'm not able to respond. I'm not able to help. I'm not able to be open to the world. And actually, that's all I want. Actually, I don't care about anything else. That is all that I want. That is all I want my life to be about. And I don't care how painful it is, and I don't care how many lifetimes it takes. That is what I'm going to be doing. Right, that's a bit intense. Bye, folks.